It's fantastic. It is fantastic to be here because it is December 5th, which is a Saturday, and we're back on our regular time at 1 p.m. Thank you to everyone that's here. Jesse just left. I don't know where he went. He quit already. We've been going live for 10 seconds, and he already been. And he's back. All right. Oh, man, I got so nervous. What is up, Joel Mendez? I see you, brother.
I don't know what happened. I've lost all audio on my end. All of it.
Are you back or no? I don't know what's going on with Jesse, but we're going to press on and hopefully he'll figure it out. Anyway, it's great to see you, Jesse. I can see you even though you can't hear me. And we have Amanda Smith with us, who is an outpatient counselor in Iowa. And she actually just finished the second training that we've provided out there. The first one was, what was it, October? Amanda, do you remember?
Yeah, probably mid-October.
Yeah, it was in October. So we did a 16-hour version, and then we just came back and did a 24-hour version. And so she was one of the, I think there were 6 that came through both of them. And so anyway, her critique last time and feedback was really positive and constructive. And then so her and her bestie Celeste got to come back through this one. And again, just super engaged. It was exciting for us when the class started and they like go right to the front, because that's something very rare in our world. People usually like to fill in from the back. And so they loved sitting right in the front of the room and taking all the notes. And after the first day, I was like, how can you guys still have so many notes to take? These are all the same classes you just took last month. But they were really engaged. And so it just made the class a lot better. I'm trying to buy time while we add Jesse back. There you are.
Not sure what happened there.
Can you hear me?
As soon as it went live, everything crashed, like everything.
So can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
I could hear nothing for a second, but now I can.
All right, man. So welcome back to the show, my brother. Anyway, Jesse, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're there and we can hear you now. What's happening, man?
Right. Good, brother. I'm excited for a few reasons, because we just finished what I'm sure you already probably mentioned, and I missed it all. Really great training we got to do out in Iowa, and we got maybe half a day's rest in between all of the stuff that we're doing, because when we're home, we're not still really home. And we got a great guest with us who was kind of a rock star in our training. So I'm excited to be here.
Amanda, why don't you, before we like dive in, just tell people about you, what you're willing to share, as far as like, you know, how long you've been in this field, kind of what drew you to doing this work, and some of your experience. And then I'm going to ask you a slew of very difficult questions. Not really.
Awesome. I'm ready for it. So I've worked as an outpatient counselor in Iowa for the past 5 years. And I think, obviously, I did my education in human service, and from that, I wanted to go into a helping field. Substance abuse was where I began my internship, and from there I was offered a position and stayed. I think the people I work with feel like family, and it's just been a good fit ever since.
Awesome. So 5 years of experience, and we just met again, like we mentioned at the beginning. We met in October, so just I don't know, 5-6 weeks ago. Was the first time that we met, and that was a interesting setting for as far as training goes. That was one of the most unique setups that Jesse and I had ever been a part of, because we were actually at a what's like, without the name of it, but like, what is that, like a substance use treatment facility or housing? What is it?
So it's actually like a transitional housing crisis stabilization
unit.
Yep.
Yeah, very cool. So yeah, we were like in the like the living room of this place, and we talked about this before. But anyway, this time they put us in a different building. It was an actual conference room. That way we could responsibly socially distance and keep ourselves spread out as much as possible to create a safe training environment. So anyway, it was a I would say probably a little bit better training environment, at least for us. It was a little space.
Oh, absolutely it was. Yeah.
Jesse, what are you doing, man? How come you didn't come over to the studio today? What do you got going on? You got to like pack for a trip tomorrow?
it's kind of interesting, right? Everyone's like, "Oh, when's your next trip?" Like tomorrow. Like, so we came home Thursday and we're gone again tomorrow. So there's a lot to do, a lot to prep for, and the studio that we work in is kind of far away from where I am at. So it's essentially losing 2 hours of time that we just be giving up in travel. And we did a lot of work this morning, albeit separated, but we did a lot of work. I will say that getting back to the training itself, I think one of the things that changed so much, or what was so different, is we were asked to give a training, and we had very little information, and we want to give what the client wants. But for context, we were asked to give a training to what we were informed would be mental health professionals. And I think Joe and I sometimes will make a mistake that because we don't have specific licenses or a lot of letters after our last name, that there may not be a lot of content we can offer, or maybe they've heard it all. Like, we don't want to give them everything. We don't want it to be redundant. So we went this initial time. It was a very small scale setting, very homey environment. And there was a lot of good participation. It was a great class, but we could see that the participants really would have benefited if we'd given them a very comprehensive package that we normally give to law enforcement, because this was not a law enforcement group. And it was interesting enough that the CEO of this organization that hired us was in the training the entire time. And she recognized some deficiencies that probably could be addressed if we had provided the comprehensive context. So without any time wasting, she asked us to come back and provide a 24-hour curriculum, which had been like in my head for quite some time. And I think Joe and I really believed that it could work and it would be very, very advantageous to civilians or people that work in the field. And that's how we came back to see Amanda again. So she went to the first training, that was 16 hours, and then she went to the 24. And I got to say, I felt really good leaving. I felt, I love seeing the people be developed with their skills and then apply them, and then how gracious and thankful they were for going. So it was an incredible experience. It really was.
Amanda, here we go. Specific to you, I'm curious of what your thoughts were prior to the initial 16 hours. So is this something that you heard about, saw an email, and were like, yes, I want to go? Like, how did you find out about it? And then was it pushed on you, or did you want to do it? And then let's just start there. So like, how did you come to find out about it? And then what made you want to come if it was voluntary?
Yeah, so I think specific to me, we recently, myself, you mentioned a good coworker that I work with, but Celeste, we recently decided that we were willing to respond to the crisis calls. And so that is something that we didn't have a whole lot of experience in. And so trying to get as much experience through training as we can prior to doing that, I think for both of us was really a priority. That being said, we attend trainings regularly throughout the year. We need so many continuing education hours to maintain our certifications. And so I think the expectation going in, although exciting because it was new, I don't know that we knew a whole lot of what to expect. And I think that pretty routine for us to attend trainings.
Have you been responding to like mobile crisis type calls prior to the training?
Not other than within our location. I mean, we get calls into our agency where individuals, family members may be in crisis, but not out in the public, out in the community.
Okay. And so from that first one, did you was there benefit or value to you? And I know that's a yes, no, but like how so? Like how did you feel it actually impacted the way you were doing the job that you were already doing?
So,
Great
open-ended question, Joe.
No problem. I got this. So just to kind of go back, I said that it's nothing new for us to attend a training, kind of routine. We attend trainings all the time. I will say the difference going into it and leaving the training is that leaving the training, I was excited. I felt that there was a great deal that the training had offered us. I feel like just learning the things you were able to provide, they were all new. And maybe if not new, because certainly we've heard some of them before, maybe if not new, just being able to hone in on some of those skills was definitely a benefit. Did that answer the question?
Yes, it did. But as far as the actual, like, okay, so the things you had heard before, now you're hearing it a different way, or we honed in on it a little differently. I mean, so you're saying it was applicable to what you're doing. Is there anything like even anecdotal that stands out to you of maybe a situation where you used techniques, or you were on a call, or a situation where you thought back to something that was provided?
Lots. Yeah. And actually I've really been thinking about this, not just in my professional life, but in my personal life as well. I feel like a lot of it has been useful. Do you want me to go into details on what, or?
Whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah. I mean, I think again, it's just you saying that though. I love that, because again, we've been like screaming this from the rooftops for a long time of, we're not just like the content we have, the way we deliver it is not just good for police officers. It's not just good for this group. It's not like there's no just, it really is good for people. And because there's so much application to the individual self, and that's why any training we go to, if it's going to be more than a half day, unless the client's asking for something very, very specific, but anything we do more than a half day, we always make sure we incorporate like the wellness component, because again, I think that's where it starts, right? Is the better, like the healthier we are as individuals, the better we can kind of show up into the world to serve other people. And so it's such an important piece of us. And so yeah, whatever personal thing that like you experienced that it made you think of the training, I would love to hear about.
Well, I mean, you had mentioned the wellness portion of it, and specifically that, just challenging myself to, how can I be better in each of these areas? And actually so much so that the initial time I attended the training, I went home and spoke with my husband about it, and I told him, I wish you could come with me. This is great. So I think that speaks to carrying over into my personal life as well.
Yeah, one of the participants from the 16-hour actually brought her husband back to the second one,
to the 20,
who left law enforcement. So that's fascinating. Yeah. Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah. Yes, I find it interesting, right? Because you are not in law enforcement. No one in the group was, with the exception of, she brought her husband, and he's been through a lot of trauma when he was on the job. So that, so she wanted him to get some perspective. But what I find interesting is a lot of people assume that this training is like, one dimensional or one direction. So it's all about teaching one person how to deal with, a marginalized community or a specific classification of audience. And that's not the case at all. It's multi-directional, multi-dimensional. And I love that. I think probably the most rewarding thing for us is when people leave and say that it's done something for them personally, or in their personal lives, or had a perspective shift. And I will say this, right? Joe is very acutely aware when he teaches, ACEs, that people in our profession are commonly have lived a life of trauma. So we want to do good with the world with the trauma we have, and push forward with it. And I think it's super important, specifically for this type of work. Counselors, crisis respond interventionists, MCOT people, whatever. If you work in the mental health field, there's a likelihood that you chose it for a reason, and you might not even know it. And there's a lot of underlying things. And I think our training kind of addresses that so well and allows for some perspective. So we're not just teaching you skills on how to talk to people. The goal is, if we can look at mental wellness holistically, it just makes us better human beings, and those interactions will come naturally also. I'm really glad you got that out of it.
Yeah, and just because I'm seeing our numbers increase here a little bit, I want to welcome people joining us live right now. Again, for those that don't know us, I'm Joe and Jesse's down there. And then we're delighted to have Amanda Smith, who's an outpatient counselor from Iowa with us. And this was at the advice of one of our advisory board members, actually, who said that for our Saturday shows, we should really consider bringing on people that we had recently trained, because in every training we do, we give out critiques, and, you know, people will put all kinds of things on there, and, you know, we read them, we give them back to the client that hired us to come in and do the job, just so they can see what's going on. But then we save them. We keep them all here, and, you know, Jesse's now starting to turn them into some data, but you know, it's something that we've always just given out. We read all of them all the time, but I think it would be great to start capturing them, like some video testimonials, and this is just a way to do it. So anyway, there's Celeste. There she is. What's up, Celeste? Anyway, and then real quick, Elizabeth, I was going to jump on this too. So
Great
Elizabeth,
question.
what is ACEs? So ACEs is Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, and something super fascinating about this is we're getting like really, really mixed reviews. But when I say mixed, I'm not saying good and bad. It's just like, oh my goodness, and like, holy, what in the hell? It's people, and this is something that just kind of came to our awareness in Iowa. So when we were in Waterloo a couple months ago, we had like, there's apparently a lot of officers up in the area that are Bosnian. And so while I'm teaching this ACEs course and I'm talking about it and I'm going through the assessment, this guy comes up to me, Mayho, this dude's great. And he says, hey, Joe, I don't think the test was created for everybody. And I was like, well, you're right. It wasn't. And he was like, you know, because at 15, I was in war and my arm was blown up and I've got like shrapnel or whatever in his arm. And I'm like, yeah, dude, that's traumatic. Like that wasn't captured in the ACE assessment. If you were
we call that external validity in social science, right? So your environment matters, and the sample study of your environment matters. So, but Mayho's amazing.
Yeah. Even this last week, with this group in Iowa, we had a woman come up to us and say, hey, although my score was this and it was real low, she said it didn't capture the fact that, you know, I was an orphan and, you know, homeless for a little bit and given up for adoption. And I'm like, yeah, those are all traumatic things that aren't necessarily there. So anyway,
it's not our study. We didn't do the study.
Exactly. Like, is it a perfect study? No, but I think it does point to the whole idea, and the reason why I like doing it in the training is because, like Jesse mentioned, I mean, people in these helpers and protectors professions, like Amanda and ourselves and everyone else that's in, you know, hospitals and mental health work and law enforcement and fire and EMS and military, and, you know, we're really, most people are trying to create a better world than the one they had. And so I think it's just a great class to get people to have insight into their own stuff, and then realize from the like neurology standpoint of like what happened to you as a child directly impacts and affects how you operate and who you are as an adult. And some people wouldn't agree with that, but science suggests it, supports it. And then I think when they go through it, people like Amanda and everyone else were like, yeah, wow, I can like really relate to this on some level. Again, whether it's a 0, 1, or 10, we're all somewhere on there. And it's just about how do you use your strengths to better help other people. So anyway.
Which Amanda's doing well. I really want to get into yes, she is, Elizabeth. She is a mental health professional from the great state of Iowa, and one of the good ones. I want to get into this because this is always, I can see that. Somehow I can see that. No, I'm kidding. She's great. One of the most biggest things for some people, especially in this group, it was nerve-wracking for people. One woman came and said that she had dreams about the role plays and that Joe and I were giving her feedback. So I want to bring up the role play scenarios, because that's always one of the biggest things that happen or that we see in the critiques. People at first, they're like freaked out about them. And then afterwards you hear responses like, I wish you would have had more. They were so valuable. I want you to talk to us about what you thought about the role plays and if they were beneficial and why, please.
Yes, absolutely. I don't think anybody really at the beginning likes role plays. if there is somebody out there, you are one of the few, I feel like, until you really start to get comfortable role playing something new that you've learned. I feel like it's very uncomfy to start. That being said, I did provide feedback about how needed they are. I'm glad that you had us do them. I would encourage more because that is like putting it all to use. There was a lot of information that you were able to give us, but I think through the role plays, you make sure that we walk away able to demonstrate those things, that we're really internalizing what you're giving us. And if we're not, it's like back to the drawing board. Hey, how do I help this person so that they can internalize it and use these skills? So that being said, nobody really loves role playing, but so needed and very beneficial.
Yeah, the critiques as we're reading through them, because we specifically have one for role plays at the end of the critiques, and consistently it's like, I really, really was afraid of this part, or I had so much anxiety about this, or I really didn't like this, and they all see the value in it. And even when we're doing them, because it becomes this like, it's almost like this supportive community too, because doing it in front of your peers, it's like terrifying, like, oh my God, I have to. And we even have people like that would admit like they're shaking and they're like, I'm worried about the performance and my peers seeing me and judging me. But by day 3, which this is one of the significant benefits, in our opinion, of going from the 16-hour to the 24-hour, and then even more so to the 40-hour, is, you going from just 1.5 days of role play, essentially, because Monday really is, we're just looking for basics. Like, can you work through the active listening skills? And then Tuesday, if that's the end of it, like we're trying to throw everything at you and they're real quick, and then it's like, you're done. But what we were able to do this time was Tuesday was still just kind of like we're building the structure, and then Wednesday we're reinforcing it, but the confidence level just continues to rise the more we do them. And I think then you start to, it was great, y'all weren't there, but like when someone was done and we would give them feedback, like the group would clap. It was a beautiful thing. Like everyone's just supporting each other, clapping for their role plays. It was great.
I think one of the things that we figured out too, and I mean, this again, we're learning as we go, but different states have different rules, different ways of doing things, like certain licenses have at different levels. So to be a crisis interventionist, you wouldn't necessarily have to have the most extreme curriculum like at some of the licenses in Texas and vice versa. So we really didn't have a fundamental understanding. And then also, what I have found also is just because someone has maybe a master's level education or a master's level license or is a clinician, I think the way that we see abnormal psychology and the way maybe academics see it are very, very different. And I think when you're in the real world space, and one of the benefits that I think Joe and I have forgotten that we actually have is we have worked with people in full-blown crisis in their own environment, like at their worst. And we've seen a lot of it, and helped people at that level. Whereas maybe someone with a license is used to, maybe not that they haven't seen that, but they're more used to like a clinical setting or in their office or make a controlled environment. And I'm glad that we can bring those perspectives together. So I really think that the 24-hour was the sweet spot. And Joel's right. Like the fact that we get to develop them along the way. So we're putting everything they learn about maybe a specific disorder into context, and then we make it come to life. And I know you guys don't like role plays. Everyone's like, we don't like them. They're exhausting for us. They kick our butt to do. It's tiring when we get to that point, just like, oh, we just got to get through it and make it through the day. But we really pour all into it because we want you guys to feel it and have it as real as possible. But yeah, they're initially not fun for everybody, but I think it's probably the most beneficial part of the curriculum.
And while we were 1 week off from doing this, Amanda, I know this is going to bum you out, but we actually hired a videographer, and he's going to be coming with us tomorrow on our school for next week. I know. I don't know. I think that would have added more pressure to y'all, but no, he's just going to get some of the just for like B-roll stuff. But shout out to Joel. Love that dude, and I'm super excited about what he's going to put together. So here you go, Amanda. You have to answer questions from the audience as well. So you mentioned you have continuing education requirements to keep you current. How did this training compare to other training you've taken in the past?
Thanks, Elizabeth. I mean, I hate to brag you guys up that much, but I came back to the office telling my supervisor that hands down one of the best trainings we've ever attended. I'm pretty stoked that we got to come back a second time, and I really encouraged her. So just kind of how our agency divides, you guys were able to train a portion of it, but our agency as an entirety did not get trained, and so we have staff members geographically located in other areas, and we had kind of talked about this, but I'm hopeful that they can receive the training in the future, because that's how much I thought it was useful.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, but we were there in class, and Amanda did come up to me and was telling me that this would be great especially for management and people in positions of leadership, because it's important that we don't just see these skill sets as something that's good for them, good for others, right? And I believe especially people at the top, and what I find really, really encouraging about this whole like heart of Iowa region is the fact that on both trainings, Darcy Alt, the CEO of that region, like attended all of it the entire time. I mean, and was just super engaged, involved, like watched everything, and then like fed everyone. And it was just, to me, that's super important, because I think as the decision maker and as the one holding purse strings and making the decisions, it's important that she know, not just through critiques, but also through like sitting through it and understanding like, oh, wow, yeah, I can see the value of this. And because from that, this last one we did, she actually, because she sat through the previous 16-hour, she wanted law enforcement to show up for the wellness portion. And so she invited one of the local deputies to come sit through it and see if it would be of value. And so he showed up. He wasn't in the training, but he showed up just to kind of observe that wellness class and took a bunch of notes and then disappeared. But when I asked her, like, hey, so did he have any feedback? And she was like, yeah, he loved it. And now we want to bring you back in the next few months to train the deputies and do a like mental wellness or resiliency program specific for them. So there's an incredible like ripple effect. That's what Jesse and I like to call it. Everywhere we go, we try and just like drop our stone and allow this ripple effect to take place where people are hearing about it. We're creating some buzz. We're building a community, I like to say. And Joy says, when you start using your Milo, you won't be so exhausted as role players. True story, Joy.
Please.
Yeah.
Speaking of the stone, right? Gabby has a nonprofit. She came to us. She's working on it. She's already setting up a meeting with the nonprofit because she wants to use the nonprofit to raise money to have us bring the training to the fire department in Des Moines. So a lot of things happened.
Not just a nonprofit. Do you remember the name?
Yes, I do. Now it's escaping me. Like I just had it. I want to say something else, and that's not what it is. But go ahead. Oh yeah, egg rolls, right?
It's like the egg roll ladies.
Yeah. Like, but I had the food wrong. But anyways, that's how they raise money. But ripple effect across the way. And so, Krista, what's up? Heart of Iowa will be the first one to hire us. Not for CIT. They'll be hiring us for wellness and resiliency training for their officers. So Darcy Alt gets it. Like she's seen some of the interactions that maybe could have been better. And there's a lot to CIT, and that's great. But no, you won't get to see that face unless I record it for the Milo, Elizabeth.
It's coming.
I'm gonna get off track here, but we had a photo shoot session yesterday that Joe set up, and this guy tried to pull that out of me. If he had just said that probably would have been easier, but that's what the end result was. But I digress. But so Darcy Alt sees the benefit of if officers are mentally well, that's not the one. That's not the one at all.
That's the one I'm going to use everywhere.
That's going. I know that's going to go on presentations on Monday now. Anytime we're in CAT, that's going to be the Monday picture. I have a feeling. Oh. But she saw, I'm going to finish my thought now. She saw the value of if officers are well and resilient and they're, feeling good, then those interactions are going to be better. And that's going to help her people out too. So I think she saw the whole picture. So she'll be the first mental health authority that we're working with that's going to purchase this service. So good. But I digress.
All right. So tell me, let's specific, because I have my answer in my opinion, and Jesse already showed his hand. But for you specific, Amanda, like, what did you see as the value from the 24-hour to the 16-hour? Was it just more role playing or the content? Like, what stood out for you?
Well, it was more role playing, which, you know, even going, you asked a good question earlier about like, what are we going to give them, that those that had already attended the initial training, what's going to be different in the second? And the role playing, I think that the opportunity to do that twice was great. I think that coming back as quickly as we were able to, it was like carryover knowledge. Some of those things that we had learned with you the first time, they stuck. And some of that through doing the role plays, but just the information in general. But I think that with the, you said 24 to what was the other hours? 16, 24 hours. So I think that in the 24-hour one, that you also expanded on the content as well.
Right. Yeah. So, and you're right. What was super interesting about this is that the quick turnaround. So to your point, Amanda, it was more like a continuation rather than a refresher, because refreshers are usually after a year or two has passed. But with this, it was really, I think it was maybe 4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks total. And so while some of the classes were verbatim the same, I think it maybe just reinforced what it was that you learned, because again, we know enough about the brain and how it works when people are learning, that when they're sitting through heavy just content days like that, they're not going to retain everything. And in fact, I think even when you watch the movie the second time, and I told people like, hey, I have no expectation that you sit around and watch this movie again. But everyone stayed. And when you watch the documentary and you told me like, hey, like I'm seeing things differently this time, watching it the second time. So, you know, it's a pretty cool thing. You know, obviously it would be great if we could return to a group 1 month after leaving and do it again. But there's like so many new people out there that don't have even the base stuff that, you know, it's like we're just splitting hairs trying to get everywhere we can. So hopefully as we expand and grow and we build up our team, then we can have other people help out with all this. So that's the plan. 2021's got to happen.
Yeah, we've been talking about making portions online. So like maybe like some pre-workup, and then we show up and kind of do the hands-on stuff. Lots of to go with that. If you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, which again, like we're really trying to figure out how to navigate all that like most effectively, because it's just such a. I really think that our effectiveness lies within the in-person engagement, and I think if you know Amanda and her group were watching this on a screen or on a computer, it would just be more distracted and they wouldn't be as drawn in, they wouldn't be as engaged. And I think it would be like a multitasking thing where it's kind of playing in the background. And I just don't know that it would really lead to the behavior change that we seek anywhere we go. So I'm just still trying to wrap my head around all that. But this is where we have incredible partnerships with people like Milo, and we're going to figure all that out of how we can create a dynamic, engaging, video.
I was going to say, we just asked somebody for 40 grand yesterday for that purpose. You're freaking me out. Like,
yeah.
We're still working it out. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. There's got to be a balance. There has to be. There's good.
Yeah.
Celeste is right.
He refuses to take any of our online training. Got it, Celeste. Thank you. No, but one of the things in the immediate time that we are talking about is how we can put a refresher type course, and we would only unlock it for people who have already been through our training.
Yeah.
That met us, they know us, and then maybe they would be more compelled to actually engage in an online platform. Not a super fast way to scale, but I think it would just be good that it's like a leave behind. Like, hey, you can, you know, if you guys want to in 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever, if you want to like log in and take this course by taught by us, then maybe you would be more inclined to do that. So that's something that we are looking at. Elizabeth is always promoting our movie. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, it is still streaming on HBO for 2 more years now.
And like I meant, and I did preface before I showed it to them that I think, for me, I think 3 times was a sweet spot. Like watching it 3 different times, you really get good grasp on the movie. Before I put it on. And Zach knows this firsthand. Zach has been feeling the pain of teaching through Zoom. But I think the whole world is zoomed out, if you know what I mean. But it has saved our jobs. So we wouldn't be going next week because all of our, no, not this one, the week after. It appears at Fort Dodge that one will be there, will be, everyone externally will be Zoom. Like no one wants to take any chances. So we get that. We understand that.
It's going to be interesting. And Zach is asking me to set up the room in a way that he can see the room. We're in a different space this time as well. Zach, we're not at the university, so I don't know exactly what it's all going to look like and how we'll do that. But I'm going to try, man. I'm going to try. We'll see what we can do. Yeah. All right. Sorry, I got distracted. All right, Amanda. So, so you've been through our training. You've technically been through 5 days of training with us, and now I'm curious, what are you going to do with
it? So I think, I talked about crisis calls and how Celeste and I plan to pick up on those. But, a lot of it just day-to-day work. So working as a substance abuse provider, the communication skills, definitely valuable. Already using some of those. So not what am I going to do, but probably continue to do. And not only that, but I was thinking about this earlier as well. I think just day-to-day life, I never know. I could be walking through Walmart and somebody is having a rough time and just needs that person to talk to. So I think that it could be used in many ways.
Yeah. And
Amanda's already designing role plays. She's already designing role plays right now. I love it.
Oh, exactly. I was going to say, at Walmart, there's a guaranteed someone's in crisis. It's like a magnet. I'm curious. Have you talked to your kids about any of this? Like, for example, you've talking to them about like mindfulness or gratitude or anything like that, or you're already doing it? Because I know during the wellness class, you mentioned some of the things you were already doing. And then I did receive some really cool feedback too, from someone that was in the class about how from the first time they went through the 16-hour to the second one, just in that 1 month, they started, seeking services on their own from that course. So again, it's things like that just warms me, makes me so happy. So anyway, I'm curious if you've, I know you said you told your husband, you tried to drag him in training with you, but what about your kids?
It's not a conversation. I won't say it's a conversation that I've necessarily had with my kids. I think that being said, though, it is something that I myself have been more mindful of when talking to my kids. So not necessarily telling them things within the training, but using those things within my own life to better talk to them.
Right. That's like, and then that went directly to Joel's question, right? Do you think that teachers could be used with kiddos? There is a whole curriculum designed for interventionists to deal with kids specifically. And, it's commonly referred to as children's CIT. And it's usually been developed for school resource officers and teachers. But Joe, for the longest time, has had his eyes set on school systems. But it's been really tough to break into, especially this year. I will say probably the first success. I'm sorry?
I said today, it's still one of our best trainings that we've done was with that.
Exactly.
Not
exactly,
for
right.
it, but for the guidance counselors and school administrators.
The first training, one of the first things we ever did when we first started the business, we spoke to school counselors at the Eagle Pass Independent School District, which is on the border of Texas. A lot of problematic social issues, but a very big school district. And I mean, they were floored with it. I mean, amazing feedback. It was, I think that's probably when Joe and I fell in love with doing the business was that experience, and Heart of Iowa was a very like similar feeling leaving. So I'm glad you brought it up. But the fact is, all of those school counselors had no mental health training. None of them were mental health counselors, but they were all dealing with kids in crisis all the time. So it was absolutely needed. It was a pretty successful training, and we'd love to do it again. Highly needed. Great question, Joel.
What else is happening, Amanda? What's next in your professional like landscape? Like what's next in your journey?
That's a good question. I don't know as far as career path wise, but academically, I graduate here within this next year. I've got a couple classes left until graduation. And then I suppose after that, I will make the choice if I will go on for more schooling or devote time for just work.
I'm going to make a wager right now. Amanda's going to go to school. And that's what I'm going to bet. Yeah.
I think there's going to be a gap because I think this is my 2-cent assessment, but I think when she's done with this round, there's going to be some like self-assessment reflection time. And then I think there might be some like career pivot, whether it's just
football
or external. And then, but I think one of the things I picked up on from Amanda is it was very apparent to me from the first training that she is a professional learner and I think a student of life. And so she's consistently seeking, and I don't mean to say she is if you're not sitting there, Amanda, so you, my assessment is that you are consistently looking for opportunities to learn, to think in a different way, to better yourself. And there's this whole like desire to stay on this like path of self-improvement and growth. And so I think with that does not allow for stagnation. And so I think as soon as school's done, there'll be a breath and you'll kind of survey the landscape, but then I think you'll be chugging along doing something else, whether it's professionally or with school or both. But I feel like we're kind of aligned in that sense as well. And because, again, you should see some of these critiques. I should have brought them out. Unbelievable. It made me think for the first time. So I purposely, on these critiques, I will only have like maybe three to four lines after each topic, thinking most first responders are only going to put one line, like maybe one sentence, maybe one fragmented, incomplete, grammatically incorrect sentence.
You know how many times we get very good.
Right.
Good.
Instructor was good.
Informational.
Or even better, this is our favorite, is they will, like if we have a last minute adjustment, we had this not in this Iowa group, but for the police officers, we had to make a tweak to where on the critique, there's a class that doesn't exist. Like we didn't give it because we had to pivot. And which is, by the way, that's an incredible tagline. Elizabeth, mark that one down. We didn't give it because we had to pivot. Anyway, so we didn't give this course. And we're reading the critiques, and Jesse goes through, and we're driving back to the airport. And he's reading this critique, and I'm like, what class was that? And he was like, it was for, and I forget what it was, but it was
trauma-affected veterans. Trauma-affected veterans.
A class they never
got.
did not give. The entire class, all except one person, gave a critique of it, and it never happened. And they're like, were detailed too about like this was really informative.
We need more of this. I wish we would have gone more into detail on this class. Like, what are you talking about?
There was one person
absolutely not paying attention. So we may have discredited all our critiques from here in the past on this one show, but Heart of Iowa was amazing. Like you guys were writing on the sides of pages, like on the back. It was amazing. And so, like, this was the first time I didn't get to read the critiques because Joe and I didn't have a road trip. So we just went back to the hotel. Joe put him in the bag and then he went home and read them. But this is the first time I didn't get to see him. But look at this. Like, this is not a police officer doing this, obviously.
I know you can't really see.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you can't really read that, but it's a lot. There's even you're not going to be able to see this, but there's even a part. Let me see if it'll show up.
I think you got moved.
Yeah, there it is. Boom. Ran out of room.
Yeah. Ran out of room. The 4 lines provided was not enough. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Heart of Iowa, we love you guys. Heart of Iowa is they're there you go, Krista. Boom. So
Kristen was
very
awesome.
cool stuff.
No, but yeah, so it was just fascinating because, again, all of that to say, we appreciate it. As anyone out there that teaches anything or is an instructor of something, you've been in a situation where like the entire room is kind of just like, and it's low energy and they don't really. And so, Jesse, we are what we are whenever we go anywhere. And so we kind of try and, bring energy and positivity and lift up the spirit of everything around us. But
no matter what's going on in our life, like we're pushing ourselves to bring it. Like we want to make that connection for the behavioral change. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because we really are there to deliver. And so we take it very serious, regardless of what we have happening. But anyway, I was saying all of that to support you, Amanda, in all that you're going to do as a professional learner and someone who is hungry for positive change. And so I just appreciate you being in both of these classes. That's what I was trying to get to. We just took a
Me too. It is super humbling and also like amazing and rewarding that we can go to different parts of the country and just meet fantastic people like the people in Krista, yourself, your sidekick that you volunteer for everything, right? So that's people like yourselves, and you like you get it and you advocate for us afterwards, like you love what we're doing, and there's like this alignment, and it's just great. So it's great to meet people like yourself. I know you're going to do great things, and you're already making people's lives better, and you're going to keep doing that. And it was great having you.
We're on spot.
Let's do it. This is normally where we close up the show, and we do it always the same. We never tell you we're going to do this, so if you don't watch the show, you're put on the spot. So we're doing that now. We're going to give you an opportunity to leave the audience with something. If there's something on your heart, some advice, wisdom, quotes, whatever you got, we're going to throw it on you and put you in the hot seat and take it away, Amanda.
Oh gosh. Well, that is a shame. You should have prepared me because I actually love quotes and I feel like I could have had a really great one prepared. God, guys. I think that I just think that working in a helping field or not, everybody has the chance to impact lives, impact somebody else's life, and you decide how you impact that life. My hope is that you choose to make that in a positive way, a positive impact towards others.
See, after all that, you came up with that, and that's awesome. And that's exactly what you're doing. And I love that, right? We don't have to be in this. You don't have to have a specific profession or have a certain type of work to be a good human and to have good impacts come out of things. And I think we're learning that every day as we go along. So thanks for that. I am extremely grateful for these couple of days to be home. And we're going to be gone again. But I have to say that I am so happy for this journey. And I always feel like a broken record when I say that good things are coming, but they are. Like Joe and I are probably working harder than we ever have in our lives, to be quite frank, with the exception of, stuff we did in the Marines, right? But not that drastic, but we're working a lot. But the difference is, like, this work makes us happy. And while it is exhausting and it's taxing and it takes so much out of us, and we're doing it for a few reasons, but one of those is for the existence of this show, like the product of this show, what's being talked about in this show, it gives us purpose and clarity. And anytime we finish the school with that amount of success, it just means we got to work harder and push forward and make it more. So we're going to grow. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that everyone anywhere out there can get it. We're going to bring it to them, the content, the knowledge, the wisdom, everything. So I'm glad to be a part of that, and we'll be on the road again tomorrow. But I am showing some gratitude for people like Amanda, for my best friend Joe, and for the opportunities we're having in the future, and to spend some time at home.
Well said. And Amanda, I didn't see this earlier, but some advice for you from Elizabeth is she thinks you should be a law enforcement officer and hang out with Zach for a while. That's her feedback. So hopefully I'm not giving away anything that's not public information, but I know that maybe someone close to you might be getting into the field soon. So we'll see. But anyway,
That's
Joelle,
right.
from Joelle, the man who asks a question is a fool for a minute. The man who does not ask is a fool for life.
Boom, Joel.
Well done, Joelle. Well, anyway, I'm not going to go solo because I'm just going to wrap it with my quote. And it kind of ties into what Amanda was saying. And while we put her on the spot, and she did have to think for a minute, which was great, what she came back with was basically this idea of mindset and how, like, no matter who you are, what your capacity is or what your profession is, if you are a person, you have a capacity to help others. And so how you show up, and that really ultimately is a choice. And so my quote is, with the right mindset, we cannot lose. We either practice what we've learned or we learn what we need to practice. And again, it's like there's no losing, right? There's winning or learning. And so adopting that type of mindset is super important. And so again, we gave her zero preparation for this. Everything was just off the cuff on the spot. And Amanda, I appreciate you taking time on a Saturday away from your husband and kids. I know you've got a big trip coming up here in the next couple of weeks, so good luck with that. Be safe as you go visit the beautiful. I heard just yesterday, in fact, that where you're going, and I won't say it, and just in case there's someone that's going to follow you, but where you're going is where people go to meet God. And it's that beautiful. So anyway, I look forward to hearing
Really cool.
from your trip. So anyway, everyone, we are Solution Point Plus, again, national training consulting firm that focuses on cultivating mental wellness to maximize human capital and promote safety. And if you want information about us, please go to www.solutionpointplus.com. And we look forward to connecting with you. Y'all take care. You well. Have a great weekend. And let's go.